Recycling Initiative who kind of pointed me in this direction. Before we get started, just a little bit about me. I was born and raised in the UP, graduated from Michigan High School. I spent 8 years in the military and the Army, worked for the Corps of Engineers on the construction equipment and demolition side. So we used to blow things up and then take the equipment and fill it back in and blow it up again. That was kind of my deal. From there, I came back in 2000, and I've been working for Marquette County Solid Waste for about 20 years. We'll be 20 years in January. As we go through the slides here today in this presentation, just from our perspective, and maybe mine personally, having a landfill and a recycling operation, we really wanted to look at this from an opportunity to do better. I think it's important in this forum to keep a sense of balance as we're talking about public and private partnerships, we're talking about government entities, etc. So just the theme is an opportunity to improve, an opportunity to do better. Slide. So a little bit about the authority, Recycle906. It was formed in 1988. Services we offer in Marquette County, everything from solid waste disposal to single stream recycling, processing, household hazardous waste, so we collect household chemicals and those are disposed of properly. We have compact fluorescent bulbs and recycled batteries. We basically have all the municipal type programs that you would see in a solid waste authority. The regional role, operate, advocate, and facilitate. You know, this has been a project that has kind of taken on a life of itself. I mean, we built recycling infrastructure in Marquette, and we branded it as Recycle906. You know, a lot of folks think it's a Marquette thing. The design from the beginning was to try to capture every piece of recyclable item we could across the entire UP. So we've been operating for about 18 months with the new facility, but are really now, post-COVID, able to get out and talk a little more about the other things that we do. We are solutions oriented, and you know, we'll talk a lot about today about what Marquette's doing and what we see in Houghton County, but really want to talk about what we see as possible options to improve access to recycling in Keweenaw. Current partnerships and future endeavors. I mean, this has been fantastic with Northern Michigan University. We're partners with Michigan Tech on some projects right now. Next spring or summer, we're actually going to build a section of road in Dickinson County with recycled glass from our facility. Tech is doing the bench testing now. It was just funded last week through the state of Michigan. So there are a lot of offshoot type things that have come from this project, and it's really about looking at waste as a material versus a waste. So how can we use it versus just throwing it away? My role, how much time do you have? You know, obviously in Marquette County itself, with the solid waste and the recycling, all the programs we have, but the Michigan Recycling Coalition role has been, you know, kind of thrusting me into some, you know, different areas where you're working outside of county borders. We have a facility that we want people to be able to use, so we have to educate on what materials are acceptable there, so that when residents and businesses are placing things in their 6 or 8 yard containers or their curbside bins, they know what can be placed in there so that we can process it and market it to markets across the Midwest. Slide. So, regional processing, this is a little bit of things that we do. Go ahead. This is what this looks like at the start of the process. I kind of want to illustrate this. This is a commingled mix of single-stream recycling to include Houghton County's material. We see material from Houghton County probably twice a month. It's hauled from the Waste Management Transfer Station, so it's all the materials that are collected at the different places, and it is hauled to Marquette. This is about a 4 or 5 county mix. We are doing Menominee, Iron, Elger, Houghton County, and then of course Marquette. Slide. This doesn't do the new system justice, but ultimately what we have is a commingled mix of paper, plastic, and metals, and in the middle we've got a process, and it's automated, and it brings in manual labor, but you know, we've got things like automated AI robots that are actually picking plastic. We program it what to grab, and it just focuses on those items. So, you know, this is really where the industry's going. If you pictured yourself standing on a line all day going like this, you'd probably do about 30 to 40 picks a minute. Our AI does about 70 or 80 picks a minute. And this is really where things are heading in the industry. So this is in Marquette, slide. And this is ultimately where it ends up at. So all that commingled mix becomes separated through automation and also through manual labor. So, you know, what's different from previous years was all of these plastics materials were mixed together at a very low value. The new equipment has allowed us to break it down by commodity, by type, and we can sell those materials at much higher values. Slide.
Excuse me, is it
yes.
Plastic gallons or plastic bags in the right picture?
This picture here is what we call type 2 natural, so it would be milk jugs.
Okay.
Yes. Fine. MERS started in November of 2020. This is a picture about a month after, so just kind of from that distance, this is all commodities kind of being baled. And again, previous to this, they were landfill. So it's that capturing and recovery of those materials versus taking those materials and throwing it away. And again, back to what I said at the start, it's really about an opportunity to do better. You know, I ask every group when we get together, and I ask, do we really have to just throw everything away? I mean, I think there's a place for things. Landfills are very well designed, but there's also an opportunity to capture and take those materials to their full useful life. Fine. So what do we do with it? And this is another one. Well, it doesn't go anywhere. It just goes in the landfill anyways. We hear this one all the time. We get calls all the time. I made a point this past summer, and I'm not quite done yet, but I went on what I phrased as a commodity tour. Where are we selling materials and what is happening to them? Going to those locations. So we talked to the folks in Menasha De Pere. They're making cores with our mixed paper and our cardboard, Pringles cans. There's multiple items that they're producing in those paper mills that are products that are going back out that we're all using. Slide. On the plastic side, this is, again, some of the HDPE that we process on site. Slide. We went to Cleantech and Dundee in Lower Michigan and toured that plant. This is the green PET that is processed there. So they're actually taking this material, they're melting it down, they're pelletizing and flaking it. I also brought samples with me if you'd like to see those. I really wanted to go and take the story back because I think in the UP, here's the problem. You can't tie this activity to manufacturing, right? Like, we don't have it here. We don't have enough of it here. We have some in the Keweenaw, but like in Marquette County, I can't take that raw material in a bale and send it a half hour down the road and see a product being made. And that's what's different here versus Lower Michigan, where they have much more access to markets. So in order to assure ourselves and the people who are asking to participate in this, we wanted to go to the places where this stuff was being sold and talk to the people who are working with our raw materials. And what we found is that the material is being utilized. It is being recycled. And that's a story that I think is important because, again, I think there's a concept or an idea or a preconceived notion that this material is just landfill and thrown away. Right. Old milk jugs recycled back into new milk jugs. Same. So Cleantech and Dundee, they process the material, they send the raw pellets and flakes back up to Plymouth, Michigan, and these materials are made and they're sold back to Meyer and other companies like that. So it's kind of that circular versus I used that milk jug or I used that Tide bottle and I threw it in the trash. Okay, so we changed from that linear way of thinking to more circular. Fine. Some more things on some of the aspect plastic, drain tile, some of the Adirondack chairs. These are some other containers. So again, there's all different types of plastic, different types of products that are made. Fine. So let's talk about Houghton County. Currently, right now, and I sat down with WM not too long ago and had a discussion with them about kind of what was out there and what was going on. From what I understand, 3,100 curbside carts, City Houghton. We've got 2 recycling drop-off locations. You've got some paper and cardboard activity in Copper and Eagle Harbor. Lac La Belle also has some recycling. There's UP Health Portage, which it sounds like that might be coming online, might not be there yet. The Spears Lorium. The campus at MTU, obviously, they're talking about also putting some recycling containers out at the Ford site out in Alberta. Chasel's got some recycling. Ontonagon was one that I was involved in personally. There is a roll-off that was placed in the village that went full. It's hauled here to the transfer station and it's hauled to Marquette. So I don't know all the specifics of these and exactly what's happening, but what I do see is some things that are in place, which is good. A lot of communities don't have anything in place. Slide. So I had our 906 operative, Mariah, Austin, go up, slide back, give me one more, and take some pictures. We'll talk more later about solutions, but I think there's something here that maybe we can talk about that might be a benefit to both residents and businesses, as I know some of the businesses are also using carts. Slide. The two transfer station or the drop-off, the transfer station and waste management. Obviously, Michigan Tech's got multiple containers all throughout campus. Slide. So let's talk about some of the challenges here. Limited space for containers, 2 to 3 month seasonal roads, access issues, priorities. You know, this is one that we talk about all the time, and I think that where do we want to put it? And a lot of that is associated with cost. If there is the mindset that this service is free, we're going in the wrong direction. This is an industry issue that started a long time ago. Recycling is not free. There's a processing cost, just like there is for solid waste. And the question is, or really more importantly, is are we asking the question? Are people willing to pay for recycling? And we do that through surveys. We did it in Marquette County. What we found was 60% of the residents were willing to fund a millage to have recycling. Doesn't necessarily have to mean that. There's other ways and funding mechanisms to do that, but in our case, that was what people were willing to do. But it's a question that has to be asked. Access, yeah, right. We got some of this in Marquette, Jackson Scott, Washington Street. This is in Houghton here, and of course we know about the roads, and there's some here that just don't operate in the winter, and you know, for good reason, right? We don't go on those roads. This is underneath the parking ramp. Again, from a business perspective, we can see where some of those challenges are. Well, I'd like to, but I don't have a place for my container. Question is, how do we make it work with what we have? And again, back to some of those existing infrastructure things that the county has in place. Flat. All right. So, along with this, let's talk about data because we are getting some of your material. In 21, 853 tons were delivered to Marquette from Home County. In 22, we're on pace for 900. There's 13,800 households in the county. If we look at the very lowest performing single stream recycling program, we should be at about 1,500 tons based on the number of households. Okay? So you can see where we are. We're pretty far under what the minimums are. 2,400, that would be a really high performing program. How do we get to here? We'll talk a little bit more about it, but I think that there's a question about bins, the size of them, and the opportunity maybe to bring that bin size up, and also the education part, which we spent a lot of time on through Recycle906.com, and embedding search wizards that residents can use and type in their item if it's accepted in the program. I also see a flyer that's been put out here today about what can be recycled. These are all things going in the right direction, but there's certainly room here for improvement within the county. Right? So, ideas, potential solutions. Let's start here. True collaborative effort to address the issues that include cost of services. Has to start there. If we're not talking about money and what it costs, we're going in the wrong direction. And when I say collaborative, that means bringing all the parties to the table. Public, private, universities, government entities, okay? This is going to be driven in part by units of government. How does access and collection improve in recycling? This is a unit of government function, right? That's where it starts. You can have a lot of letters of support, but it has to start at that level. So whether it's at the county level, or at the city level, or the township level, that's very important. I mentioned it earlier, maximize the infrastructure currently in place, and we should educate and outreach mini grant, promote recycling activities in the area. There's a lot of money that's available in the state of Michigan right now that is not being taken advantage of by counties in Upper Michigan, and we're going to talk more about that after. Then of course carts, and I mentioned, I think, moving from that smaller cart to a larger cart. We've launched 15,000 carts in Marquette County in the last year and a half. Recycling rates have doubled in those communities. It's hands down, it's a no-brainer. Bigger cart, education, people put more stuff in, you're going to recycle more. It's that simple. And the wonderful thing about the carts is between the state of Michigan and the recycling partnership, 100% funded for these entities. Okay, 100% funded. Drop off, and then, super drop off. I know there's a couple transfer stations here, but what can we do to improve infrastructure in those places? Again, there's dollars available to make those improvements, but a government or local unit of government has to put a foot forward and be fiduciary, responsible for those type of grants, and that's where we need government engagement. Slide. Points of discussion, we're not going to talk about local engagement anymore, we already did. Public and private partnerships, we've got business community here who are also residents. Very important to come together in areas that has challenges, and we already described those. So how do we make it work to maximize that infrastructure and capture as much material as we can? Kind of dovetails in nice with business and residential shared services. My understanding is there's already some of that going on. We've got residents that are able to use some of the business services regarding recycling. Those are things that need to continue to flourish and be explored. $15 million Renew Fund State of Michigan, that's what's available every year in the budget through the state, and then it trickles down into the recycling infrastructure or the market development grants. Nonprofits, government entities, universities, these are all options or opportunities for those entities to get in on some of these dollars. And then the recycling partnership, that's also a grant opportunity. I mentioned them earlier. A lot of times when you get a state of Michigan grant, you coordinate with the recycling partnership, and they end up giving you the match dollars, which ends up being fully funded in many cases. Slide. So where's the money going right now? There's over 300 projects in Michigan underway right now. This is a huge number. I've been a part of MRC for 4 years. I will tell you, even 5 years ago, without that Renew funding, there was not a lot of projects. Delta County, $600,000. This is within the last 3 years. They upgraded their transfer station. The city Marquette, or Marquette County, is at $1.9 million. Obviously, we got money for our facility. There was 5 entities within the county who received cart grants, also road grants for glass trailers, trying to take advantage and maximize those dollars. Michigan Tech was just awarded a grant here recently on recycling infrastructure, which we are a partner on. This is advanced recycling, trying to break plastics down beyond just sending them to market, even looking at more solvent-based or pyrolysis-based type of things. There's a lot of cutting-edge activities that go on here in the region, and we want to be a part of that as potential solutions for hard-to-deal-with materials. There was some smaller ones, KBIC, I believe 20,000. City of Hancock had a grant for 8,000 or 9,000, not sure what it was for, and Elgin County also had a small grant to put together their residential surveys. Summary, path to action. Know your public and business community, and again, I mentioned surveys. I think you have to. What do the people want to do? Okay, and there's talk of legislation in Michigan about, having recycling be mandated, those different things. I mean, I'm not a big fan of waiting around for any government entity to tell me how to do what we should do. I see something, I see a problem, you go out and you try to take care of it. And right now, there's money available. Go make your community better. Write a grant, get carts, get a better drop-off, and the politics and the legislation is going to play. We don't know what that's going to be. It might take 2 years, it might take 10 years, but in the meantime, there's a pot of money. And right now, this region, other than the small grant for the city of Hancock, there's an opportunity to take advantage of this. Local government engagement, talked about that. Conversation to action. We talk a lot. What are we doing? Right? And defining victory. What is it? Okay? You don't get it all at one time. So in this case, if I look at this region and I say, if you could get 64-gallon carts to every resident and business who wanted them, and you've got good education, you probably have a great chance to double the recycling rate in the county. And if those carts are fully funded, and that hauler is picking up those carts anyways, what are we talking about other than a government entity writing a grant with letters of support from the business community, the university community? To me, it's a no-brainer. But I think a lot of times, what I have found is that there's just a lack of awareness. Folks don't know that these programs are available. And I'm here today to tell you that they are, and that Marquette County and others have taken advantage in the past. Recognize the challenge and work to rectify. We talked about this already. Request respect all entities and bring them to the table. And again, from haulers to government entities to businesses, everybody needs to be at the table. There's a lot of stakeholders that their concerns need to be taken into consideration before you start making decisions. That's very important. Treat recycling as a utility. It's a service, like anything else. Okay, so it's water, it's electric, I mean, it's something you want, it's something that you pay for, you treat it that way, and it's built in. That's how, it is a good way to look at it. And then again, grant dollars available. And one thing that's changed here in the last couple of months is the UP planning agencies that are involved. I was in Detroit last week. QPAD from the Senate was there. They represent 6 counties. They gave a presentation on how we can develop a hub and spoke program within Upper Michigan. Slide. And they came up with some fantastic slides that I want to share. This is kind of the idea of the collection and infrastructure that can be scaled, deployed in a large hub and spoke system. So, you know, you've got all these mileages, and we've been spending a lot of time, how far is it? How do we, because that's the issue, right? We can't transport anything because everything comes up here, but nothing comes back. You know, we have figured out a lot of things over the year to include 400 inches of snow. Pretty sure we can figure this one out. But we need to collaborate, and we need to talk, we need to work together. Next slide. There's your hub and spoke. This was a big hit in Detroit, where of course people don't believe there's snow here, or can't believe the amount of snow here. But this is kind of illustrates what we're talking about. The MRF is in the middle, the recovery facility, and then you have all these entities that are bringing this material to one central location. This is the hub and spoke. And we already are doing a lot of this right now in the UP. Mariah has lived here for 3 years, graduated from Finlandia in May. We have spent a lot of time here as a family. And I come here, and on Tuesday, somebody mentioned it, and it's like, that's waste day or recycle day. And I'm like, I just know there's opportunity to capture more. Again, will you get it all? No. Can you do better? I believe you can. Fine. Okay. This is the new branding, Recycle906. Again, less landfill, more for you to enjoy. Recycle906.com. That'll take you to everything recycling, to include the search wizard that allows you as a resident or business to type in your item. It tells you if it's acceptable in the program or not. I'm out of breath. Thank you. I didn't have, I didn't put up there, so yeah, go ahead. I'm going to get some coffee. Over here. Something here.
Put that last slide back on.
So, a question I have.
Yes.
How bad is it like when you put the wrong thing into recycling? You know, like I'm always looking at that list, and not going to that.
Sure.
What kind of corrugated cardboard can be something that has shiny stuff on the outside?
Yeah, absolutely. Questions all the time about this, because you know the industry standards. If it's not simple, people won't do it, right? I tell people all the time, think about it this way: if you were going to reuse something, what would your expectation be? If you were going to use it yourself, what we try to focus in on, we tell people, is keep the organics or the food waste off of these materials. Okay, you don't want to take a half a jug of milk and toss it in a recycling bin, because now any cardboard or any paper you have in there is now going to be contaminated. So on the paper side, we break it down, we put it in, some tape, staple, we're not worried about those things. I'm after food waste, those type of things. Plastics, containers, quick rinse it out, keep the labels on, put it in your bin. If you want your cap recycled, keep it on, keep it in a container. Some things are easier than others. I mean, who's cleaning out peanut butter jars? I mean, okay, and again, right, when in doubt, throw it out. Like, if you can't get it to that point where it's acceptable, then you've got to do what you got to do. Now, trust me, I've seen people put them in the dishwasher before. I'm like, yeah, that's not me. I'm doing everything I can, but I mean, this is just examples to your point. Like, if you can't get it there, then, you know, it's a waste.
But is the whole thing thrown out?
No, it's not. No, it's not. We've got that line, and again, I didn't spend a lot of time on the process because I really wanted to focus on this area, but we've got equipment and people who are dealing with that. We try to minimize it because, of course, it's a labor cost, the more contamination that we see.
Okay.
Yep.
But that would reduce the worry people like that.
Sure. Yep.
We've had some problems with like members that aren't in our organization throwing garbage into our recycling
Sure.
things?
Yep.
So does that contaminate the whole load, or do you have lockable bins, or how do you deal with that problem?
So at the level, at the source, it would be, you know, either staffed containers, or we've seen locks before. When we get these loads at our facility, we've been taking material from Houghton County for well over a year, and we've never rejected one load. You know, I mean, if it's so bad where it's, you know, you open the back door and the whole thing is solid waste and garbage bags, well, we can't deal with that. There is a level of contamination in this material, and the industry is typically 22 to 25%. We're probably at 14 to 17% right now, which is okay. It's better than the industry standard, but you're going to see a level of contamination, because at the end of the day, there's always going to be this is a component of this, right? You get everything you can, but there's a waste fraction that's going to be.
Are there lockable
Sure.
containers?
There is, and it's something that you have to work with through your hauler or who is providing those containers. We've seen cameras, we've seen all, you know, there's a lot of different ways that people work to control the contamination issue. So, yes?
So in an early slide, you had showing the whole complex where you do all the processing. You had like 4 or 5 bundles, different bundles and everything. Do you sell everything you produce, or do you send some of it to the landfill because it can't be sold by buying it?
Sure. Everything that we bale commodity-wise is sold. There's a residual fraction, and it's what you're talking about. If you've got waste that comes through, and it comes in the first part of the system. So it's called pre-sort. So we've got 4 staff members who are going through. They're pulling the larger metal items, the things that can't go through. They're also pulling waste, things like plastic bags, which we do not want in our system. Those items, yes, will be landfill, but we pull those out very early. I would say overall, again, I gave you a percentage of contamination. For not having a lot of education, per se, outside of county borders, I think we've done pretty well that way. Stuff looks pretty good. And we've never had a load rejected at any of the mills, turning it back and saying too contaminated, etc. So I think people in general are doing pretty good. But what we bale goes to sale. Residuals, yes, we'll do that.
So you talked about Michigan, so Wisconsin's a lot closer. Can we send stuff to Wisconsin, or is there rules and regs between the states that we can't do that?
Great question. All of our fiber, cardboard, and mixed paper goes to the Fox Valley. I tell people all the time, we're 3 hours from Lambeau, we're 8 hours from Fort Field. Paper's got to go to Wisconsin, right? I mean, you have to. It's 3 hours away. We'd love to keep it in the state, but the reality is we can't. So there's a lot of mills between Green Bay and out to the National Pier that we sell to. All that material goes there. We've been dealing with the same broker for probably the last 10 years. Great relationship. They're the ones that are making the course. So yes, we do sell to Wisconsin on the paper side. Yes?
Yeah, coming back to the grant opportunity. So now is that through EGLE? What agency of the state is granting?
So
funds?
Eagle is the holder of recycling infrastructure grants, and then the recycling partnership is another agency who work together on carts specifically.
Okay, so infrastructure is the primary focus. Is there any opportunity for subsidizing tipping fees at all for smaller communities?
No, it's infrastructure grants. There is market development grants also, but they will fund those type of so drop-offs or carts or those type of things, but not tipping fees like that. Those are things that, again, when you get into a grant agreement, you build the infrastructure, you agree to, for a certain period of time, to man it, personnel, staffing, etc., and maintain that, but you're getting that seed money to improve. Like I said, I think the low-hanging fruit here now will be carts. It just, from kind of a 10,000-foot view, it seems to me it would make sense. Get more in the bin. I'm sorry, right here.
I have a lot of questions and a lot of comments. I'm sorry. So my understanding is that you're not accepting the bags, plastic bags.
No, you're not.
And the reason is because your system cannot work with plastic bags.
The plastic bags are what we consider a film, hot dog bread bags, any film like that, water bottle, the outside of the casings, we cannot deal with those materials. They wrap around the shafts of the equipment, and the equipment goes down. Okay, so Mariah just did a post recently on social media, and we've been hitting it quite a bit in Marquette. We can recycle those items, but not at our facility. Take them to Walmart, bundle them all up in one, and stick them in the bin. And then they take them on a backhaul, and they go to somewhere in the part of the country where they can actually deal with those. We cannot deal with those bags. And I guess it's a great point in the sense that when you look at an item and you see a recyclable symbol, you automatically think I can put it in my bin. You have to understand what is acceptable at the facility. So that's why we've got the ability in the website to go in and search. And in general, we can take a majority of things, but plastic bags are one of those ones that just don't work for us.
In our community, so we contact, I'm from the university, from the sustainability committee.
Sure.
So we contacted waste management because we worked with them previously. And the big containers that they supply for us don't have any locks. So that was the problem because community members outside of the university would bring garbage and put in these containers.
Sure.
The problem is that they don't have smaller lockable containers. So people stay in line to get them, and it takes several years. So we have to deal with this problem. Then I just wanted to share with you, I spent 5 months in Germany. So, and I was really, really impressed by the system that they have. And the people in Germany are very well educated about how recycling works. And I can tell you, living in Germany, we had 3 bags, and the biggest one was actually recyclable materials, which would be picked up every second week from by the house. So people are educated, and people who pick up those bags are educated. If they see anything that is not recyclable, they won't pick it up. So that's the process. And I asked my neighbors, I said, this is wonderful. Your recyclable bags, which is about 13 gallons, it's free. They pick it up from a regional kind of administration building. But whatever is garbage, they have to pay for it. And my neighbor said, it's not exactly free because we actually pay maybe like 2 cents for each item that you buy in the store. Whatever is recyclable, there's additional 2 cents charge. So they know what is recyclable, they know they pay for it, they know they need to have the bags. Yeah. So can we maybe, as an idea, utilize this approach in the community? I don't think people would mind to pay extra 2 cents, knowing that it's going to be recyclable.
As I said earlier, there's different funding mechanisms and ways to do this, and those are things, us as the processor and kind of the access or the gateway maybe to information about grants and those type of things. Those are really decisions that are at the government entity level on how you do it. You're referring to, in a way, what they call pay to throw to some extent. I mean, it's built in and it's already there. I mean, that is one way to do it. But those are things that, again, as I mentioned earlier, need to be discussed, and they impact everybody. So, you've got a residential community, business community, university, you've got government entities, you've got the hauler. How does that all work together? And again, I think, in between the lines is asking the question. You just said, I don't think people would mind. Okay? Not sure, but it is a question that needs to be asked, right? Because I think in many cases it's not even asked. It's just assumed that people don't want to do it. Well, I mean, spending a few sessions here over the last couple of years, it seems to me that there is a desire to do it. It's just how, and how do we put this together? And that will come with collaborative effort.
It's type of education too, because we buy beer or sodas. We know that it's recycled, we come back, we get 10 cents back. So if people know that they pay 2 cents for another organization to come and pick up recyclables,
Sure.
it's kind of education.
Sure. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. I'm sorry. I can't see that. Go ahead.
Do you have ideas on how to improve the drop-off locations? I know we have a couple in the community, and sometimes there's frustrations. But what are some ideas to improve those drop-off facilities?
Well, I do have some ideas, and I think one of the things is what services do you want to offer? start there, right? Like, what exactly do we want to do here? There's been a lot of community input in Keweenaw about household hazardous waste. Where do I take my unused chemicals, my oil-based paints, my pesticides, my this? I mean, there's all sorts of those things that, you know, are either being somewhere stockpiled in the basement somewhere waiting for that opportunity, or possibly being landfilled. And I'm not quite sure, so I think determining what services you want. And then, you know, there's, you know, a big thing is trafficability and flow and how that goes through and how that's set up, you know, informational things for residents as they go through. So yes, I do have ideas. The question is how much time do I have? You know what I mean? My role is to assist, but I will tell you that there are resources out there too that can assist in this. So there's consulting firms that are, you know, this is what they do. This is what, you know, we hired them to help us, guide us through some of this stuff. So I have probably enough to get, you know, maybe some things and get something sketched in on a napkin, but if you're going to take it to scale, you probably need UP engineers and architects or somebody to come in and say, okay, that looks good. Here's the terms, here's this. I mean, there's parts to this, so that when residents do come in, it flows, it makes sense, it works, it's safe, right? So I do have some input on it. There's others that can help this too. So thank you. Yes.
Hey, this is just more of a personal question about recycling up here. I had a neighbor who just emptied his the gas from his mowers into the ditch right across the street from my place, and I don't know if you know if there's anything that we could put out there about how to properly dispose of gasoline and
that probably doesn't move the list. Wow. Yeah, it's a symptom, right? I mean, I don't think people want to, I mean, you can't walk out the door and see what's, take one stare at the bay or the bridge or the hill. I mean, I don't think that, I mean, but if you don't have the opportunity or the access there, maybe those are, maybe you don't feel there's any other, any other way. There certainly is, but
yeah, so I don't know if anybody knows, because I'd love to get that information.
That threw me off. I got to regroup here. I didn't expect that one, but it's, I mean, to the point of household hazardous waste and having access to a program, I think it's important. Because now something like that, that can gets brought to the transfer station where there's also hazardous waste collection, and it's taken care of properly. There you go. Yes, sir.
I want to do a shout out for the Copper Country Recycling Initiative. We can help with local folks who are working to implement recycling. We did a survey in the townships, which was the majority of people are willing to pay for recycling.
Sure.
And we've recently done a survey with the CBB about hotels, campgrounds, recycling, which came out very positive. So we just need those grants to get ready.
There's an opportunity, and you mentioned people want to get started, and I'll add one to it. Some of our future mission stuff is we're now, I hope, past some of the code restrictions and inabilities. Education. We teach. I mean, I've been involved in athletics, either coaching or fishing, for the last 20 years. I was a student athlete, and we teach our kids to do everything, but are we teaching them how to put things in the recycling bin? And it's a 4th, 5th grade level type of thing. You start picking up first science. CCRI has a program, an outline already that is kind of there that I've kind of looked at. This is work that, we're going to have Mariah take a look at, spend some time, but going into schools, saying, hey, let's get 5, 6 slides up on the board because we know the attention span isn't going to last more than that. But at least hand out the education piece to take home to mom and dad, which in turn will probably lead to more materials coming in the bin, right? And if we get a 64-gallon cart, or if that is part of the future and that becomes reality, even better. So we've got those parts of this project or efforts moving forward. Yes?
So your facility in Marquette, is it, well, 2 questions, is it anywhere near capacity? And 2, if it's approaching that, are you considering putting other centers, like maybe one up here, or in western UP, one in the eastern UP, one in the southern UP, rather than just always in Marquette, because you talked about transportation
Sure.
and mileage, that would make things easier.
Sure. Facility right now, the capacity is between 14 and 15,000 tons per year. Last year we did 8,500 tons, and we'll probably do 10,000 tons in 2023. So 5,000 to 6,000 tons more, roughly. We're in the midst of exploring another upgrade for increased automated sortation, which will allow us to be more efficient and potentially take in more tons. This type of facility in other parts of UP, I think is going to be tough. This is a massive undertaking. I mean, we built this in an existing structure. This is about a $6.8 million project. The equipment was roughly $3.5 million. We did some modifications to an existing building. So we had an advantage where we didn't have to spend $7-8 million on a building, plus the equipment. So not that it couldn't be other places, maybe on a smaller scale, but I think effective drop-offs and more access is a starting point. Certainly if you were producing enough, I mean, you have to create enough of this material or be generating enough to justify building that type of facility. I mean, when we started this feasibility study, when we called people on the phone and we told them how much material we had, they hung up the phone. And they said, what? You can't even build this. So, you know, we were projected between 4 and 5 tons in the first year, and we did 8,500, which said we knew people wanted to do this, and that's really what drove it. That's really what drove it. People wanted to recycle. So I think it could be on a smaller scale, maybe in other parts of UP, but if you're not producing 8, 10, 12,000 tons a year in your region or in your area, it doesn't make sense. And right now, in our studies in the entire Upper Peninsula, 15 to 19,000 tons of recyclables is what they felt could be captured in the entire